day 5 of our online design festival, and we are looking at ADHD in design, which I know is a very broad title for a very nuanced conversation. But because authenticity and relatability is really important to me at Right Aligned, I wanted Dan to sort of lead this conversation. We've been speaking probably over 18 months or so now, haven't we, Dan? If not a bit longer.
Yeah.
Gradually little things, and ADHD came into the conversation. And I know it plays a huge role in your life and your ambitions as a studio owner. And you've also invited Joanna along, who also participated earlier this week, which was brilliant to know a lot more about you. We were talking about confidence that was on Monday, which feels like a lifetime ago already, Joanna. So it's great to see you again. Before we get going, I was just going to ask the guys, start with Dan, just to sort of give us a bit of a background about yourself, just so everybody in the room knows a little bit more about you, and then throw it over to you, Joanna, just to do the same before we sort of dive in, if that's okay.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try to be concise. I've got a little visual timer here, so I'm going to chuck 5 minutes on. So I'm Dan. I run a studio called Bloody Lovely Branding Co. We do brand strategy and help businesses and change makers articulate who they are and what they do. I found out about having ADHD, that I was ADHD about 2 years ago, and yeah, it's been quite a ride since then. So I've kind of like lifted the lid on that, and then all the symptoms and everything that comes with being ADHD flowed. So I'm still learning what is masked and what's unmasked, but I started my degrees in, I always liked copywriting and English, went through into university, did a degree in ad design, and sort of got pulled into the brand world from there. And yeah, went from there into sort of a fairly low level, like not exciting, not sexy industry of like silicone hoses and car parts, and just rode that out for a while, working on everything that I could get my hands into. So like video work and web design and just, typical in-house one person creative roles where you just are expected to do everything, which is perfect for me at the time and gave me lots of like opportunity to try different things out. And then ended up managing a team and like building a marketing department for a company, and then realizing that I hated most people. I couldn't work with them, and I couldn't deal with it beyond 30. And I'd set this mad goal of like, at 30, I'm going to do this. And I did, and I just quit work just as the pandemic happened. Really weird timing. Had this like break, which was bliss, where there was no pressure. The world stopped. Set the business up, and then quickly realized like I had a lot of the things I was struggling with were consistent in my life. So that's where the ADHD diagnosis started. And yeah, roll on 3 years, we're still alive somehow. I don't know how. But yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Joe, can you do the same for us, please?
Yeah. I'm Joanna. Hi. I've also got diagnosed with ADHD about a couple of years ago. But beyond ADHD, I'm a brand designer, a strategic brand designer, and I've always failed to keep a job, in all honesty, because of my ADHD, even though they would always say, oh, you're super talented, but I just couldn't fit in. I couldn't even tell why, to be honest. And then after getting diagnosed, that pressure was gone. And also I realized that I'm much better at mentoring and leading and the creative direction than following roles. So yeah. Unlike Dan, I have been just branding. I just fell in love with branding since uni, which has been over 10 years now. So that's all I've been doing. Yeah, I think, again, I'm running my own agency as well. Yes, and actually I've met Dan through this talk. I saw the talk ADHD, and then I booked a consultation with Dan just to have a chat. And then Dan messaged me, and we ended up doing a project last week, or like any spontaneous ADHD person would do. Last minute we ended up working together for a London project. So yeah, thank you, Dan.
Brilliant. Cheers, Joe. I really appreciate that. For all you guys that are watching on, the live chat is open. We traditionally ask for questions, but what's been really nice this week is people have just been throwing in thoughts and opinions and where they're at. So if anybody's comfortable to do that, please do. It really does add a lot of depth to the sort of the movement of community, I think, more than anything. And obviously, we're all here with a sort of common thread. So please drop anything in there. It'd be really, really great to hear from you. Dan, I'll put it back over to you, mate, just to sort of really, well, start from wherever you whatever you thought was, you know, in the plan that you had for this talk or this conversation with Joe and others. Just let you roll with it, really, if that's okay.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so as Joanna sort of hinted at, we kind of didn't know each other beyond 4 weeks ago. I think it's literally to the date. And we worked together in London. I thought this would be a really good opportunity. I knew this day was looming. I had to come up with something to talk about that was hopefully valuable. I didn't have a clue. And even the posts that I actually shared, which Chris took a lot of energy and effort to write, was like, I haven't got a plan, but I'm doing this, and use a link. So that's about as prepared as I was. And then 30 minutes before this call, I'm like, I should probably put something together. And now I've got about a nice, concise, like 2,000 words on what we're going to talk through, which probably won't be anything that we talk about. So I met with Joanna and I was like, this is really interesting. We're exactly the same, but we're so different. And that was kind of I took that threat. I haven't been able to not get that out of my head. And I wanted that to be I thought that'd be as simple as it could be around a conversation of like, how can something so familiar be so experienced so differently? I think that's kind of the theme. So we've got ADHD and design. There's definitely a section in here that we're going to talk about the kind of like natural processes of that and how ADHD can like make that more challenging and also make it much more accessible and simple in some ways. So I think it's just a case of like, yeah, trying to represent both sides of the coin. Because, you know, I was born like this, like I lucked out on the like doorway card. Like there's not much that I can get away with a lot being a white man, right? So like most things are okay. And then it's only last year or the year before that I realized that I wasn't neurotypical. So like that was the first card that is like, oh, you're disabled now. Like, right. So the labels start. And then, yeah, you feel a bit different and you realize actually that's, I've been different all my life. Now I can be different out in public, which is cool. So the first thing I wanted to try and do was kind of just talk around what ADHD is. And just for the benefit of everyone in the room, I don't know what people's backgrounds are, if they're just interested in ADHD in general. So I'll try and keep it as simple as possible, but also like not the boring stuff that everyone kind of hears all the time. So ADHD is first coined in the 1930s. That's the first like clinical like recording of it. So it's been around like a long time. It's not caused by sugar and E numbers. And actually, in some cases, glucose can actually benefit ADHDers. So having a sip of like glucose when you're trying to concentrate or focus on something can give you a boost to help with that concentration. 80% is in our genes, 20% is kind of unknown. Like there's not much research in ADHD, specifically in adults. And then you look at like intersectionalities, like there's less again. And then you look at like the positives or benefits of ADHD, there's even less. So it's just really poorly researched. It starts in childhood and continues for about 50 to 80% of people. So if you have ADHD as a child, I mean, it's with you from childhood, so before 12, but you're born with it pretty much. 50 to 80% of people are going to continue to have symptoms into adulthood. And I always seen it as this, and I think this is a common misconception for a lot of people, but it's seen as a naughty white boy sort of condition. So if you're within that bracket, you're likely to get diagnosed. I wasn't naughty, but I was a white boy. So, I got missed. So when you start to then think about everyone that doesn't include, so like women, and anyone of any sort of other ethnic background, you're pretty much out of the ballpark for like being diagnosed. You're just going to get probably bundled into something else. Like if you're a black boy, like good luck. Like, because even though genetically there is no difference, it's just skin pigmentation, right? The diagnosis, like black boys are considered to be naughty so it's likely that that's just because they're black, which is just complete racism. Like, because there's no scientific backing or genetic research to like actually compound that. That's just society. And that's where, like, I think most of the issues come with ADHD is society actually disabling rather than the conditions.
On that note, Dan, sorry,
Yeah,
just
you're gonna
and
have to jump in when you need to, Joanna, because like I will just run this for 45 minutes.
yeah, I think it's a very good point about the racial distinction. However, there's also the gender. It's huge because all the women go undiagnosed for a very long time, sometimes never get diagnosed, because all the studies on ADHD were done on males, and the symptoms presented in women are very different than the symptoms presented in men often. So yeah, and because all of the studies were done on that, we go undiagnosed for years. But like my GP said the other day, you survived 33 years, so I'm sure you can survive another 3-5 years waiting list, because I was diagnosed in Cyprus and now have to get diagnosed in England to get medicated. So I'm unmedicated, but anyway, yeah.
Which sucks, right? Because like you now have to join the waiting list to the UK, which is like in some places it's up to 6 years, which is just nuts, right? Like up to 6 years of waiting to get diagnosis for something you know you have. And to be honest, you can be waiting 6 years for something that results in only medication anyway. Now, medication for me has worked like really well, but like I thought I was going to get more support than that, and it's literally nothing outside of meds. So
yeah, and you don't want to be on survival mode. Like the GP said, oh, you put up with it 33 years. I'm sure you can put more, but I don't want to survive anymore. I want to
thrive.
Be better. Yeah. Anyway, so
no, I think it's a
yes.
really good point.
Another thing. Sorry. Me and Dan, when we first met, all our conversation was based on sorry. That's another ADHD symptom. We just keep saying sorry.
Yeah, we've been told we're wrong most of our lives. So the thing you mentioned about women underdiagnosis in women, there's a pretty reputable resource or source for a statistic that was embargoed by Psychiatry UK, and that from something that was a Freedom of Information request, and that was that currently up to 90% of women are being screened out of the diagnosis process right now, in something that's completely underdiagnosed, because the DSM-5 and like the criteria for like diagnosing ADHD is like so out of date and doesn't include things like emotional dysregulation, which is a massive, that's probably the biggest impact in my life, is that emotional dysregulation. I can deal with the other stuff that I really struggle to deal with. But yeah, like up to 90% of women, and that's not because of ADHD. That's because society expects different things of women. And my partner, who is currently going through awaiting diagnosis, is dyslexic and now thinks she's ADHD. She was like, I can't be ADHD because I'm not like you. I'm like, oh, I haven't been told to sit still and to like basically shut up and just do as I'm told all my life. Like, I'm not a woman. I have so many doors left open to me. If I ask for something and I'm like really focused, I'm a dedicated, like really authentic, energetic young man. If a woman does that, it's like, oh, well, she's a bit bossy, and like it's the negative connotations that come with it, which is just society again. So yeah, so I think which is a real struggle for women, because when you're in that place anyway, and then you've got an establishment that is built to basically push back on your belief of yourself, like you've got to almost like fight to defend something that you're not entirely sure of yourself, which is probably why ADHD is so underdiagnosed. So ADHD is a condition that affects the way people behave. And obviously attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The biggest issue I have is the fact that it's nothing to do with, it's not a deficit of attention. It's the opposite. Like, we have attention, it's an inability to focus that attention. We don't have control over that. And in most of the cases, we're driven by what is a reward system, like, or lack of. So our lack of lack of reward from doing tasks is what drives our focus. So if something is much more fun to do than the boring thing that we need to do, regardless of whether the thing we need to do is going to end up with us, like, I don't know, in court or evicted or whatever, like irrelevant until that is the day of, we'll go and do the other fun thing. And that can be anything from like painting or creative stuff, or like, I don't know, sweeping the floor really thoroughly, like weird stuff.
Sometimes it's not even necessarily fun things. Sometimes it's just things that are easier done, because we just procrastination. We avoid thinking that thing that has to be done. But yeah, I read something amazing from a psychiatrist the other day that said about I really forgot what I was saying. See, ADHD right in front of you. Oh God, sorry. Carry on. It will come.
We can swing back. It'll come. Gary, did you have a question, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw a point in back on. I'm up in York, and a scheme is being piloted right now whereby, for a GP to refer a person for assessment for ADHD, that person, and I don't have the facts to hand. I was furious a few weeks ago when I did have them. They need to be at risk to themselves. So that's, if you're not going to commit self-harm or you're a danger to others, the scheme says you can't get a GP referral. Yeah, I mean, that's quite a significant hurdle, you know, when you're talking about getting a referral from a GP, and, you know, you can't get it unless you're at risk to yourself or others. And yeah, up in York, there was some fury, and rightly so, when it was announced a little while back. I'm really happy to dig into it and share that information with yourself, Dan, and you can potentially share that with your wider community. But if they're piloting it here, where does it go next?
It's like that's like just so infuriating, because I think the challenge is now, like, there's so much awareness around ADHD, and it's like Mental Health Awareness Month, right? Like, a lot of doctors within the system are like, we don't need awareness, because awareness just drives demand for already overstretched and under-resourced services. So awareness actually causes issues, because we can't serve the people who are aware, and we're awakening more people to it, which is a really weird, like, paradox to be in. I don't know what the solution is. I know that there's something called right to refer, which is
right to choose.
Right to choose. That's it. Yeah, right. So I used right to choose and went via Psychiatry UK, which was like its own like pain for me, because it's like that, you know, feels like the death of the NHS. Right there, it's a private company, like massively growing, doing good stuff because it's getting people diagnosed, but a shame that it couldn't be done through our NHS. But I don't know, that sounds like almost corrupt, because like how can you, like, it's so debilitating. It seems like it's a perfect like example of like how misunderstood ADHD is. Like, I didn't realize just how much it affects literally every part of my life. It's a, you know, a behavioral condition. So all of my your behavior is like linked to you, right? And like, this is the like terrifying part for me when I found out. It's like, oh cool, yeah, I knew this. And then it was like, so who am I? Like, what have I, like what's left of me after all these labels? Because all these labels kind of explain me. So that was like quite I think what I'm trying to say is like, even diagnosis is a challenge. There's not even like, but that's not even looking then at the support that comes after diagnosis. Like, the whole line of it is broken, because like it's as if diagnosis, right, if you're diagnosed, all your problems are solved. It's like, no, because like not only just aware of all your problems and there's still nothing there to like support you. It empowers you, and it allowed me to ask for help and to
accept yourself, right?
Yeah, be myself and forgive myself, because I was savage to myself before it. And I don't, it's like you said, Joanna, like, oh, you've survived this long. Like I literally survived myself. Like I had depression, anxiety for the majority of my adult life, starting from university, and like trigger warning as well. Like I was suicidal twice, and like it's frustrating because it's like that could have been the end of my story, and it's like all I needed to know was this. And it's like so obvious now. I look back and I'm like, what could, like, I could have handled this shit so much better if I just knew these simple things. Like, you know, I had control. It's called area of influence. Like, what can I control and what can't I control? And most of the stuff that was causing my biggest pains were things I probably could have controlled at that time. Some stuff completely out of my control, but at least then it's not me being a failure. It's, you know, it's my ADHD. It's not me. And the stuff that I could control, I could have actually done something with. And I'm sure that resonates with so many people that are on this journey. And I just thought I was a failure the whole time. So like diagnosis isn't just about meds. It's actually like, yes, you aren't this utter mess that you think you are. Like that's what it was for me. And that actually put me off for quite some time. I was like, what happens if I'm not diagnosed? Maybe I am just shit at life. And like, I've got no excuse then. Not that it gives you an excuse, it just gives you a reason. But yeah, that sounds like right to your MP sort of thing. Like, can you give me what you've just said in writing, please? Because I don't think that sounds like it breaks some rule somewhere. Because like, how can you deny someone a diagnosis unless they're suicidal or at risk of harm? Like,
yeah, well, I'll dig out the information and share it with you. So you've got the, you know, the hard facts, just to know, because, you know, if it does get rolled out, it's a, you know, cost cutting. But yeah, it's appalling, absolutely appalling.
Sometimes I get asked, would you choose not to have ADHD? And my answer is no, I would choose to have ADHD every day if I'm honest, despite the struggles personally. But I would rather know much earlier. But personally, coming from a place, Cyprus, that they don't even know what ADHD is. And if you say that, they just say, like my mom still says, it's your imagination. It's all in your head. Well, of course it's in my head. That's where it starts. And what I was going to say earlier, we have an issue with time blindness. So we can only focus on things that are for now. That's why we are bad with planning, but we're really good with finishing off a deadline that is now, tomorrow, and hyper focusing and smashing it. So when you meet someone and they tell you, oh, you've got ADHD, wow, super cool, you've got a superpower. And I'm like, yeah, sort of, but there's also so many other weaknesses about it. And it's all about, like Dan said, it's just managing, learning, finding out, accepting yourself, managing the symptoms. It just makes it a hell lot easier. It's not just about the meds. Yeah. And back to with the Dan thing, the collaboration we have, I think, because what I said about time blindness, I can only focus on now, it made our collaboration very good, because nobody, I think, would have been free with 1 or 2 days in advance, notice in advance, but having that flow of, yeah, now, let's do it now, whatever we just felt in the moment. And actually we went, sorry, Dan, I'm completely changing over the subject probably, but we just went for a brand strategy, 8-hour brand strategy workshop. We haven't never met before. And everybody thought we knew each other for a long time, because we had that vibe. We had so many differences. And this is, I think, what I'm going to pass on to you, Dan, now. So you can maybe, I don't know, talk about the ADHD in design in these kind of meetings, or, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's what you said's bang on. Like, it's so interesting meeting someone that sees the world the same way as you, and it's just like a relief, because you start on, you're no longer having to like explain context for everything, which can be really painful and make you feel, it's quite a vulnerable thing to do. And like, you know, oh, this is, and after a while you feel like you start getting into the old habits of like, oh, I feel like I'm pissing people off now. And it's so easy to, it's actually like the stuff that goes in our head that actually is most damaging, like the way we speak to ourselves. And I think
we would have,
go on.
Dan and I, we would have, I think I was saying this the other day, we would have 10 different conversations at the same time open. We would touch base on each one of them, and then we would remember and come back at some point. Sometimes we would remember, but if we forgot, we wouldn't remember that we forgot anyway. So yeah, there were issues, but there was also the positives that were way bigger. And what I loved about it was that I knew that we wouldn't get offended if we told each other, you're pissing me off right now. I remember the second day, we knew each other, only the second day, we were in the taxi going to the client's office. And I said to Dan, did you wake me up 2 hours just to chat shit to me? And it was only like, I only knew you were, and then we just created this bond of familiarity and feeling comfortable, which I think was, yeah, great. Somebody's raising hand, by the way, Beth, sorry.
Hi.
Go
Yeah, just before when you were talking about getting a diagnosis and such, my brothers both got diagnosed when we were like really little, and I didn't, even though I had terrible organizational skills, but they were hyperactive and naughty, so they got a diagnosis. I did not. I'm 30 and I'm in uni as a mature student, and I've really struggled. I'm still waiting for a diagnosis, and I just went to my doctor's. I had to get a form done with him to diagnose me to a certain extent before I was allowed to go for my referral. And because I've been on a contraceptive hormone pill and I've just come off it, he suggested that maybe my symptoms were due to my hormones and not because I've had a condition since school.
Yeah, I had hormones since I was 5. Say to him, it's just,
Yeah.
geez, this is awful. I'm sorry.
What did you is there anything that what did you want to know? You might have asked a question there, but I've like completely blanked.
No, it was just to add to the whole issue of like trying to get a diagnosis as a woman, the kind of imbalance between male and female, I guess, that they just expect us to have like emotional dysregulation because of your hormones.
Yeah, like men understand like women's hormones so well, right? Like, and especially doctors, like
it's the whole, you're not hyperactive, so you're fine. You don't have ADHD, but it's not like that. My hyperactivity is often mental. I've got both. I've got hyperactive, like racing thoughts 24/7. By the way, I thought everybody had racing thoughts. I thought everybody's voice talks to them 24/7 until I took an Adderall for the first time and everything shut. And it went like, after 10 minutes of taking an Adderall, everything went boom. And I was suddenly able to concentrate. And then, yeah, I learned that in women, hyperactivity doesn't always come in physical activity, but it can be in their minds. I think doctors, unfortunately, still have a lack of knowledge, like in Beth's case. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that lack of perspective is so like damaging, and it's so difficult to explain because most of the well, all of the things that come with being ADHD are relatable. And like, I think that's the biggest challenge, because like we're duped when you're not diagnosed or you're not aware, you're duped into thinking that everyone is the same. And it's like, why does that happen? And I think it's because there's a beautiful term that, and I've got some resources and some sort of like places to go and search that I'll share after when we're done. But like, there's one of them which is ADHD adult.uk, which is an incredible podcast and place to get some resources and sort of wayfinding for if you need some support with that. And they coined it as a disorder at the extremes of a continuum. So like everything that an ADHD experiences is experienced by the sort of neurotypical, which is, there's no neurotypical person. It is a middle of the road, like section of neurodiverse people. Everyone is neurodiverse. There's not one brain the same. Neurotypical refers to that middle center ground of majority of people. So most neurotypicals who fall within that sort of category of like pretty flat circle and graph of like ability will understand, like, oh yeah, I lose things, or I forget my keys, and it's like, yeah, but bro, like, do you do it fucking 30 times on the way out the door? Like, do you do it every time you leave the house? Do you do it the same things? Like, put an IKEA cabinet together. Like, I put down a screwdriver, I pick up the hammer, I do the hammering bit wrong usually. I put the hammer down and I'm like, fuck, where's the screwdriver? And I spend the next 20 minutes looking for the screwdriver.
And on that, then the lose of motivation. So let's say you started building an IKEA and then all of a sudden, because you lost a screwdriver for 5 minutes and you couldn't find it, then you just leave it undone and you go, oh, I'm gonna do it later. You lose motivation completely if something starts losing the and it's just so many more. Yeah, that's why we have I don't think I have ever met a person who I haven't explained to what ADHD is and they haven't said, oh, I may have that. And that's totally fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me personally, but it goes to say that, yeah, it's a spectrum, but people who have actually ADHD, it's very hard to deal with on a daily basis. Yeah.
I think because
what about
we experience it so differently as well, because that was really interesting with like how we express ourselves. Like you're very vibrant and energetic. I describe myself as a fun sponge. So like how it manifests is really interesting because
I'm more of the white naughty boy label in all ways, yeah. And in that I could barely sit still in that meeting, and where Dan is more, you can see he's more into his head and more introverted, thinks more, analyzes more probably. I
think I got the feminine energy, you got the masculine energy, which is like really, I was like, hang on, this is because you're like this powerful woman with ADHD who like thinks similarly to me and is like extroverted, and then I'm the like opposite of that in a way, like because I've like regressed in, so I've like deep issues with like self-confidence and like standing up to myself and avoiding conflict, which and I'm going to try and seg this way into something to do with ADHD and design, which impacts things like finding new clients, like trying to talk to clients. Like once I'm speaking to someone, I'm absolutely fine if there's a connection there. But if there's like any sort of authority, or they try to like, basically if they're neurotypical in any way, like it just freaks me out. And I'm like, because I don't know. I think the whole thing with like most people in business is like, you keep completely flat. You don't give anything away. You don't want, because you don't want to show your hand, because this is a negotiate. And I just can't do that. So I'm just like, this is everything about me. And like, this is how I do things. And like, so like having boundaries, that's something I'm like, I didn't have any before. I'd kind of like, just be like, yeah, if you need it tomorrow, I will literally kill myself doing this. And I will be in tears. And, people don't see the like pain that comes through delivering, like at the level we deliver at. Because Joanna, you mentioned about like doing something 30 minutes before, like the output is insane for like the way that most people with ADHD work. Like the level is like just so high. And I think that's like trying to make up for what we see as like things that pull us back. And it's just like unachievable in a way, like unachievable perfection, because it takes so much from us. It's only, Joanna, I don't think I even told you this, like after the workshop we did together in London with a client, it's the first time I've like phoned my partner and been like, I really enjoyed that. I've like actually enjoyed it, because what I thought was like fulfillment after a project previously was actually relief. And I just retermed it as like, oh, that's good. I've kind of done the project. It's just sheer relief that I made it through it.
So how come, I think that's a good subject to focus on. How come, so working together, how come, why was it better? How did we help each other? How did you feel relieved?
I think I could see when you were struggling at points. So when your sort of executive function had dipped, you'd used that tank, and I could see you were like you were needing longer and longer to process what was being said and to then come up with a response. And I think that comes down to your energy, because that takes it, right? So like keeping a room vibed takes from you. That's why I just don't bother anymore, because I don't make any funny jokes and no one laughs.
So yeah,
but for me it was like we noticed each other's dips, because we experienced things the same way, and we could like come in and support each other at that point. And
so on that note, I think it's worth mentioning that usually for my clients, I do the brand strategy myself. It's just me. And then I have to lead it. I have to entertain them. I have to be charismatic, energetic for 8 hours. You have to keep them on their toes. And then at the same time, I have to somehow make notes and analyze the results. So how it worked, it was mainly me leading the workshop and Dan in that immediately analyzing, but we kept it also natural when I needed the support to get picked up, because my brain just brain freeze sometimes, and Dan would be there, and equally the other way around. So it means that and somebody asked, by the way, on that note, how's your ADHD diagnosis helped you to get support at work? In our cases, being self-employed is different, but it helped us to understand that we also need help, and that it's good to share it and to collaborate. I think collaboration is a huge thing, because it just sparks more ideas afterwards, especially when we move to creative direction. We smashed it in a day, because it wasn't just all the stress that comes with it and it needs to be done. It was a nice collaboration, understanding each other and feeling each other's energy whenever it would drop or it needed feeling. Yeah. Andreas asked, does it get worse over time? It gets worse, I think, if it's unregulated and I'm not going to say necessarily medicated. Medication doesn't work for everyone, but if it's unregulated, what's the word? There's another word. Unmanaged. If it's unmanaged, yes, it gets worse. I think that's a very tricky question, because you can go through your life moments where it can be really, really bad, and then it can be a little bit better. It depends.
I think for me, it's like, does it get worse? I don't think like it gets worse, as in ADHD gets worse. I think the impact of the symptoms are increased when we don't care for ourselves. So that is like, caring for myself has always been a challenge. I've always thought I'm a failure, so like I don't deserve any support or help. So I like, poor sleep impacts executive function and ability to concentrate and focus. Like poor diet, same thing. Like gut health, like our gut produces serotonin and the chemicals we need, and we struggle to have an abundance of within an ADHD mind. Our gut actually plays a massive role in that. Again, poor research in that area, but it's the research that is there shows it. So like making sure, taking time out, like removing ourselves from situations that are noisy or impactful or overstimulating. Like I didn't think any of these things like impacted me, but now I know, and I can remove myself. I've tested them. I'm like, oh, maybe I just don't like being in pubs actually. I remove myself from that noisy environment, and I can regulate myself again. So I think it's awareness and ability to like give yourself that kindness is what can like lessen the impact.
Yeah.
I think
we have a few questions around. Beth asked, basically the question that she's asking, if there is a way that we can do all the things we studied and want to do, all the things that make us passionate, is there any way we can actually do them all? If I understood the question, good.
This really resonates with me, because I've literally just done.
I think if you accept that it's a part of you and experimenting, there is nothing wrong with that, and you have no one to tell you. Like I've personally, I had jobs where, I'm gonna say this is really important. I think I had most jobs, I hated them because they were asking me to do things that I didn't like, that weren't up to my street. They weren't exactly what I enjoyed. And then I had jobs where I had one job that I fell in love with before going freelance, because the owner had ADHD and understood exactly, and they just kept giving me design projects that I loved, and it was one branding after branding. Personally, I do better focusing. I hyper focus on one project and then moving on to the next one. I have struggles putting boundaries on when to stop on that project, but I would say I find how I find the motivation to do the ones I don't like. I've hacked that kind of is by studying the ones that I like. So a lot of people will tell you get out of the way the ones that you don't want to do, so you can then. But nah, if I get the ones that I want to do out, then it gives me motivation to do the ones I don't want to do. But personally, I didn't have much of an issue focusing on too many things, because I've always been branding. So maybe yeah.
I think anything you do, you can kind of like go really deep and wide in. So I don't even think it's a case of like narrowing it down. I literally like my business coach at one point was just like, damn that, because I've got a new website I've been trying to get out for a year, which I think every ADHDer can probably like relate to in some way. And I looked at this page and he was like, it's pretty in depth, isn't it? And I was showing my partner, I was like, oh, this is what Matt has said about this page. And I just couldn't stop laughing because I'd just seen what I'd done. And it was this like the most in-depth like page I've ever written. It's like 40,000 words or something stupid. It's just like every process, every step, like clearly articulated. And it was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I walked in and I literally yesterday, I think I realized this. I was like, I've literally got post-it notes up here for what is 8 different businesses, like within my own business. And currently there's 2 of us and we've got plans to scale things, but all of this shit is holding us back because I'm trying to do like so much all at once. And it's like, it's amazing that I can do this, like an action. And I mean, like, these are things that I can do and deliver and have delivered with clients.
Yeah.
But I can't do them all because there's no one client that I can take from start to finish through that process. I'm realizing the world isn't like this, like perfect, like organization of blocks that I want, but I found that I can kind of find my, I just roll with the punches with it, like do it, dip your toe in it. The fact that you can like do, like have the option to do all of these things is cool. Like not a lot of people can't. So like just try it and find what vibes with you and just be very aware of how you react in those situations. You might find something's actually really shit. So there's some aspects of design that I love, but I found actually that design sucks the soul out of me at times,
Yeah.
which I didn't ever realize.
I think personally why I'm great at branding and why I'm in love with it is because we have this ability to have a gut feeling, really strong instinct. Most ADHD people, so when I see with a client, even before doing the full strategy, I already kind of feel that where the brand direction should be. And then we also have this amazing problem, talking about the good things, problem solving issues. So is it Bill Gates that said I hire lazy people because they find quick ways to do things? Well, in this case, lazy, sometimes ADHD people are lazy, right? No, it's this problem solving, it's coming up with great solutions. So there are great things about it. And then finally, hyper focusing. Yes, when we do enjoy it, we will do it better than anyone else, quicker than anyone else. Yes, we're willing to hibernate afterwards, but you're happy and we're happy. So there's many good things about ADHD as well, I believe, personally, that you just have to accept them, find them, nail them, own them, and then just let them overtake the weaknesses, which is part of getting diagnosed. Is that, yeah. There's a question. Yes, a creative needs to be a creative mindset. Don't push it, don't force it, relax. It's something I teach myself every day personally. When you're not relaxed, especially as a creative, you can't create, it's impossible. So just give yourself a rest, a guilt-free rest, whether it's a nap. I find walking outside in outdoors in the nature, listening without even music, because music can sometimes be a fake dopamine hit, just listening to the birds, to the wind, just unplug and honestly have a break.
Yeah, I like second that. Like nature is the only place for me that stimulates all of my senses. So ironically, I need everything stimulated in order to like feel nothing and not think. So like sight, sound, feel, texture, whatever. So like nature is like a really known improver of like mood and mental state.
It's the best.
And
walk
also
in the
try
park.
and try to like break up your routine as well. So like if you're struggling and you're doing the same scenario, try to break it, like go to a coffee shop. We're pretty much at the end, but like it wouldn't be an ADHD talk if it didn't run over or start late. So, but
Just
I know Chris is
a very quick tip. The first thing you do in the morning, as soon as you wake up, is the thing you will seek out dopamine the most. If you wake up and grab your phone, you will find yourself grabbing your phone throughout the day. If you wake up and grab a book or your laptop or something else, go out, you will. So that is a tip I found that I love.
I think I'm just banging notes in here now. I'm spamming everyone, but yeah, like support and learning wise, access to work, like you don't have to be diagnosed to do that either. You get an assessment, so like follow that up. It's up to 65 grand grant a year. It's one of the like only things I will ever compliment the Conservatives on. So like use it while it's there. reasonable adjustments, like talk with where you work, and you'll get, and just discuss like what you're having trouble with, because sometimes it's really hard for us to work out what we need help with. Just talk to your employer and just explain, if you feel safe to, obviously. Transcription software, Miro, so like visual working tools, AI task scheduling, this is a game changer. Motion AI or Reclaim, really awesome. Like virtual VAs, basically. You can get a VA through Access to Work as well, so like that is quite a common thing. Delegating shit you can't do, like find the stuff that sucks your soul out of your nose and try to find someone who can do it for you, or say, I can't do this shit, because it stops you from anything.
And for the self-employed, so I'm personally really good with meeting deadlines for clients, but for myself, my own tasks for my business, which helps, they're still important because it's proactive steps to bring work in. I never do them. I never do the stuff like posting on Instagram or whatever that is, Google Business. I never do anything that's mine. So maybe finding someone, which is I'm trying to do that, finding someone that you hold accountable, so, and they hold you accountable, someone with the same struggles, and yeah, to share accountability.
I think I got so much more I want to say. Like Chris, I could see you like, oh man, this is a dangerous one to end on. Like, yeah, I think there's so many things that come across in terms of like the steps of like working through with design, like that. It's quite an emotional game to work in anyway, right? Because they're like putting our designs out there. It's like a piece of us in a way. And I think couple that with ADHD and like rejection sensitivity dysphoria and all these other things that come with being quite a creative, vulnerable, open, transparent person, like you can get hurt and you can get shut down a lot. So I think just understanding yourself a little more allows you to be able to protect yourself and to like, you know, learn about like disconnecting from your work, because it can take you out of the career, right? You can stop being a designer because you can't take criticism on work. There's plenty of people who've done that, who've gone into areas they don't enjoy because of it. And it's like such a sad thing, because I love this industry because I can find things like ways of solving problems and making things simple is like, it really like makes me feel good. So like to lose people to an industry that is so beneficial for ADHDers and the way we work is like sad, when actually there's quite like methodical ways of being able to like overcome these
And
challenges.
the statistics speak for themselves. Most ADHD people are leaders, are within more innovative.
Awesome. Were there any more questions at all? Or? Awesome. Hopefully that wasn't as waffly as it feels. I have no idea what we talked about.
I'm on holiday with
value, but some people have said thank you, so I'll get that.
I'm on holiday with my mom right now, and I am sure she has ADHD. Oh my God, we are at the point of killing each other, but all good. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dan, for bringing me on. Thank you, Chris. It was lovely meeting everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was it's very beneficial. It's done exactly what I hoped it would. Really, it's like everything this week has been really just a snippet of what we could go into in future, and I hope maybe me, Dan, and Joe could continue to talk potentially about, you know, running things on in future and looking at this in more depth and focusing maybe on specific things that people might be facing. But until then, I appreciate people have got other things to do, but I'm really grateful for the comments, Beth and Gary especially, for talking to us. Put the cameras on, microphones. It's really nice to get that two-way conversation. And I think Dan and Joe, that's definitely a partnership that deserves a podcast. That's a duo that's got a lot of legs in it. I think it's a very nice chemistry going on there. But I love everybody and leave everybody for the time being, but hopefully we can do something in the future. Have a great rest of the day, weekend ahead, and it's I appreciate you tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a lovely weekend.